What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode number 53. For all my Tennessee Titan fans out there, it is the great Keith Bulluck episode, former linebacker on that Super Bowl team, stalwart in the middle of the defense. And so we're celebrating Keith Bulluck tonight on the 53rd installment of the Two Buck Sports Podcast. I'm your co-host, Rusty Buckets, coming into you on what is the start of one of the greatest stretches of the year. Welcome in my co-host, Uncle Bunk. Uncle Buck, you know what I'm talking about, what we're celebrating tonight?
Oh, I know what I'm celebrating tonight.
I ain't talking about that. We'll get to that here in a minute.
Yeah. Man, it has been a good week. You sent me the Skype link and it said the Keith Bulluck episode, and I was like, I mean, come on, you've got to have something better than 53, better than Keith Bulluck. And then I started Googling it, and then can I tell you the list of Hall of Fame players in the NFL? Let's see, substantial players wearing 53. Okay, here we go. Hall of Fame gives us our starting point. This is Hall of Fame football players with the number 53. Okay?
Yep.
Can you guess any of them?
Keith Bulluck. He's not Hall of Fame,
No.
so no.
Okay, so you've got Harry Carson, Mick Tingelhoff, Alex Wojciechowicz, Lynn Ford, and Mike Webster. So
Mike Webster's the only one vaguely familiar, mostly because it's just a generic name.
Yeah. So the non-Hall of Fame players that are notable: Bill Romanowski.
Yeah.
Current player Darius Leonard. Mm-hmm. Marquise Pouncey.
Darius Leonard is a native of South Carolina.
Oh yeah. Keith Bulluck, like you said, Bob Brunig. Yeah, and a whole bunch of people that I don't know. So I guess Keith Bulluck is as good as any, if I'm being honest with you. Kyle Van Noy.
For the Patriots, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, Rusty, it has been a week. Let me tell you, we're going to get into Saturday in its full glory later. That was about the end of the start of the chaos for me. I've got a 1.5-year-old daughter that is currently battling RSV. So we were in the emergency room last night about 10 o'clock. It never fails that if anything is going to get a little squirrely with me, it's going to be around the time where I need to record a podcast. And so the devil's trying me, but we will prevail. The good people will prevail, and we're prevailing tonight by getting this podcast off. Despite my daughter having a fever.
I got some good news for you to make you feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
Today, what we're celebrating, we ain't celebrating none of that kookiness from Saturday. What we're celebrating is today is the beginning of a 50-day stretch that has a football game every single day. From now until the week of Thanksgiving, there are 50 straight days of football. There's going to be some action and some Fun Belt games in there, but there is a college or professional football game until November 22nd.
Well, I see that going around, and I mean, you've got to be like, and I consider myself a college football fanatic. I love it. I love the SEC. I love Ole Miss, but you're not going to catch me watching a lot of those football games on Mondays and Tuesdays. I mean, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I'm not watching. I can tell you right now, on October the 4th, 2023, I will not be watching a football game that happens on a Tuesday or Wednesday. Just not going to happen.
It's like the episode of The Office where Dwight wants to go to a strip club and Daryl's like, go on a Tuesday.
No, not during work hours especially.
That's it.
Speaking of, I don't know about you. I can't speak from experience, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to say a few final words, because the historical monument in Corinth, Mississippi, Wild Bill's, was torn down over the week, and I just want to give you a moment to reminisce about your times at Wild Bill's, because I know there were many.
Drew, growing up in a small town, we didn't have a lot of options for entertainment, and those ladies, from what I hear, worked real hard at Wild Bill's and probably gave out more cases of hepatitis than the rest of the state combined.
Yeah.
I never darkened that establishment, but we drove by and made fun of it all the time. So RIP to Wild Bill's.
Yeah. I've never in my life been to a strip club, and I'm not saying this I'm not lying to all my listeners here trying to act holier than thou. I just genuinely have not been to a strip club. Yeah. It's never seemed intriguing to me. I have plenty of faults, but that one ain't one of them.
Wasn't one of my vices either.
Yeah, it wasn't mine either. But I do know the main rule. If I ever decided to go to a strip club, it would not be a strip club in my hometown.
No,
you know?
no, no.
I'm not going to the flop in my hometown.
That is a smart man. That is a smart man right there. I don't care what people say about you.
Yeah,
that's a pretty smart man.
There's no doubt I'd see relatives up there, and I'd be like, no, can't go Christmas no more.
On stage or never mind, we ain't going there.
Yes,
we ain't going there.
So also we have a big anniversary today. Can you guess what that is? October the 4th. What's that day?
Well, today it's a Wednesday.
Okay, so 9 years ago, that would have been.
Oh, that's the day that Mississippi took over college football 9 years ago. You talking about the State and Ole Miss SI Sports covers, Sports Illustrated covers?
I'm talking about October 4th, 2014 was the day that Ole Miss upset Alabama in the Katy Perry in the Katy Perry College Game Day game in Oxford, Mississippi. I hope one day maybe you understand what that's like. But
if
until
I could mute your mic right now, I would. Just know when I go to edit this thing, if there's a long blank pause before this sentence, just know I got to it.
Yeah. So 9 years ago today, Uncle Buck was in a tour bus headed south towards Ocean Springs, Mississippi for our first show of our month-long tour that went from Ocean Springs, Mississippi to California and then all the way to Charlotte, North Carolina. And the first show was the day of the Ole Miss Alabama game. It was a fun time in my life, but it is also one of my biggest regrets because we had season tickets. My mom and dad were there, and I watched it on my phone in the tour bus. And no, don't get me wrong, I celebrated as if I was there.
Sure.
When Sinquez Golston brought down the interception over O.J. Howard. But it's always been missing. My life can only be so good now. I can never reach full potential because I wasn't in Vaught Hemingway Stadium on October the 4th, 2014.
Well, that's enough of that. So we're going to move right along. We're going to do it. We're going to replace our Buck's Best in beef this week with a total beef.
Oh, yeah?
Drew, we've all been seeing it. We've been talking about it in our fantasy football group chat, and it pops up everywhere. Just the obsession that is Taylor Swift right now with the NFL. I'm over it, man. I'm annoyed by it. Is she talented? Sure. She's not my cup of tea. I don't get the obsession over her, but she's talented. I'm not going to knock her because she is talented. Right. I don't find her overly attractive like everybody else does. She just seems weird, not somebody that I would associate with. But they are obsessed with him. And it got me to thinking, and I'll pose this question on our Instagram poll. There are several different subgroups of the population that make you dislike them or what they represent or what they're cheering for.
They make you dislike the organization or the person based on the fans.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out. I've got several friends, but it's like vegans. Like the number one rule of being a vegan is you can't stop talking about being a vegan.
Right. CrossFit people.
CrossFit. I do CrossFit. I get it. In orientation, they tell you, all right, you got to buy shoes. You got to talk about CrossFit. It is what it is.
Right.
And so it got me thinking, what is something that you don't like because of the fans, the followers, or all the hype?
Well, can I just go ahead and tell you my answer?
I was about to say, you were the first one to answer. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the thing that fans make me not like the organization or the player. And for me, it's like SEC West schools.
It is every SEC West school,
Mississippi State
school.
fans, Tennessee fans, A&M fans, Arkansas fans, all of them. I hate all of their teams because of their fans.
Sure. So I had a couple that were similar. I hate Ole Miss because of the vast majority of their fans. You're included in that camp.
Yeah.
I think the sports franchise that I dislike the most because of their fans is the St. Louis Cardinals, because the St. Louis Cardinal fans, they're the best fans in baseball. If you don't believe them, ask them. They'll tell you again and again and again.
Yeah, see, growing up as a Cardinals fan, I never heard that. I've heard that.
Of course you didn't. You're insulated by the fan group around you.
I think the Cardinals have the best. I'm not going around saying they've got the best fans in baseball. Shoot, right now I'm sure they're the worst fans in baseball. Their team sucks. But bragging about fandom, bragging about your own fandom of your own team, though, is something that I can't comprehend because it's an argument that you can never win. Ole Miss has a legitimate argument to say they have the best tailgating experience in college football. That's an argument you can make. But an Ole Miss fan will never be able to convince a Mississippi State fan or a Tennessee fan that they are better fans of their team. We're all fans. We're all idiots. We're all biased.
I agree 100%, but I've never been around a group of people that try and convince you of it more than the St. Louis Cardinal fans. The Cardinal way, the St. Louis Cardinals fans. But anyway,
well, the Cardinal way sucks. Let me be the voice of reason, then. Yeah, yeah.
Especially right now. But anyway, so for me, it's Ole Miss, the St. Louis Cardinals, and then I divulged away from sports a little bit. Harry Potter fans, they will I'm not a Harry Potter fan. I got nothing against it. I just couldn't get into it. But they will disown you if they find out you don't like Harry Potter.
Star Wars is the same way. Star Wars.
I don't have that. I don't see. I when I made this list, I thought about Star Wars, but the people I know that like Star Wars are like, yeah, I get it. It's not for everybody. The Harry Potter fans I know will absolutely have a stroke if you tell them that you don't like Harry Potter.
Yeah. I went on a fishing trip with my dad one time, and the guy that was what was the name of that band? Shoot, I may have to come back to it. It's one of those bands that's got the cult following.
Grateful Dead?
No, it's the sort of like the Grateful Dead or Dave Matthews Band or.
Yeah, that's another one. Dave Matthews bands.
I can't remember, but the moral of the story is you'll hate this guy just based on this one story. We're sitting in the boat and he has the Bluetooth speaker and that's all he listened to the whole time and would not let us play any music like anything else. That's all he listened to was this one band. And Widespread Panic. Yeah, That's it. He's like, hey, I've been to 100 Widespread Panic concerts, and we all just hippies, and we live on the land. And I'm like, dude, cool, whatever. I don't care. Can we please just play some Buffett?
Yeah, play something, man. Something
at this point, Dad's music sounds good to me.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I had two more. My last two, obviously, well, Taylor Swift doesn't count. She was one of them outside of Taylor Swift. Disney adults, like these adult men and women who obsess over Disney. Like I get it, kids obsessed with it. That's what it's for. But like these grown adults that are obsessed with Disney and Mickey ears and going to Disney every month or a few times a year.
Were going into like Marvel fanatics, that because that's owned by Disney. And
I'm talking about like Disney World. I guess Disney World, Disneyland, people who go to the park. That drives me nuts.
I'm jealous of those people. They apparently have way more money than I've got.
100%. And then for me, the last one, and this is going to get some flack, I'm sure, is astrology girls. Like that we're obsessed with my zodiac. Like you tell them like, oh well, I'm a Capricia or whatever it is, and like, oh well, that makes sense. It's like, no, I'm actually a Leonard or whatever. Yeah. Like,
did you see the Taylor Swift astrology thing that was going on Twitter?
No.
Where they were dissecting Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's stars to see if they matched. No. Oh, I wish I could find it real quick.
While you're looking, I always think about the joke. There's one where this girl's like, I'm a Leo. What are you? And the guy's like, I'm a Velociraptor. And she's like, well, that's a made up one. And he's like, they're all made up.
Yeah, they're all made up.
Anyway.
Yeah, I wish that I could. She got into like their ninth stars matchup, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so awful.
Oh yeah, I was at the gym one time. And this lady was like, When were you born? I was like, March 18th. She's like, no, like what morning or night? I'm like, afternoon, I think. And she's like, oh, you need to go look up the moon. And I was like, right there, boys. Like, I'm gonna put a pause right there. If any of our single fans are listening to this, if some chick asks you about what time of the day you were born, run.
Yeah. It's like, oh, what's your sign? I'm just like, I'm a Christian.
Peace. It's a peace sign as I'm walking away.
Here it is. Indulge me a little bit because I think you're going to find this absolutely horrifying, and that's what we're all here for. Taylor has a Cancer moon, an incredibly powerful and sensitive placement. It is also conjunct Jupiter, therefore intensifying her moon's influence. Taylor seeks someone who can be intuitively sense her needs at times when she can be emotionally unpredictable. Meanwhile, Travis, being a Libra/Sagittarius, could leave Taylor fearing that the connection lacks emotional depth outside of the physical chemistry they have. Humor and compliments can only go so far. His Mars in Libra, despite being in exile, may appeal to her Venus in Aquarius, as both are air signs.
I'm telling
you, I need a astrology for dummies to get that one.
I'm going to paraphrase Billy Madison. At no point in that incoherent rambling did you come anywhere near a thought. I reward you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul. Yeah. A simple no would do.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't get all that mess. And yeah. Anyway, there's a joke in there somewhere about a Cancer moon, but we're going to leave it alone, and we're going to move right along. So a couple other answers to this question. We did get some good participation in here. Friend of the podcast, coworker Kayla said, this question, I hate this question. Taylor is totally worth the hype. Disagree. That's all I'm saying about that.
That's why you're on the list, Kayla.
That's it. Another friend of the podcast and coworker named Molly, shout out to Molly, one of our newer employees here in the Myrtle Beach area, said Game of Thrones. And I personally, I never watched Game of Thrones. So
they have a cult. I'm a Game of Thrones fan. I love it. It's one of the greatest shows ever. I'm not. It to me to be in this category, you have to like be willing to unfriend people who disagree, and I don't feel that passionately about Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's how the Dave Matthews Band. You mentioned them earlier. I have lost friends over the fact that I'm not I like some of his stuff, but I'm not a huge. They all sound the same. They sound like somebody's like he's in pain.
Yeah.
Anyway. Another Taylor Swift, another one not Taylor because she's fabulous. Then your wife is out here asking the hard questions.
Oh, goodness.
Will this breakup ruin my fantasy points in the coming years? How will she weaken Travis Kelce? I think all she's going to do is write a song about it. We got an album coming out called 87 in a few years.
Yeah, he doesn't strike me as somebody that stays in the dumps too long after a breakup.
But she gonna write a whole like that album gonna be fire.
Yeah.
But have you seen some of the songs floating around? Like I'm at the 50 and and you kissed me or whatever.
I saw a conspiracy theory the other day. This is funny. You know, I don't want to spend a whole podcast talking about Taylor Swift. However, Taylor Swift conspiracies, I'm all in for like a whole hour long podcast. I saw one that said she's been investigated for her emissions on her private jet, and so it's like Taylor Swift is a genius because she went to the Jets game, but she didn't go to the Jets game to see Travis Kelce. She did it so that the Google machine, when you Google Taylor Swift Jets, only pops up pictures of her in a Jets game and not her carbon footprint. It's like, golly, people.
We are in the rabbit hole there,
genius.
Man. We are in the rabbit hole there.
She needs to be president if that's how she's thinking right now.
Woo.
Oh man.
Yeah. So. And then the last one, and this is a take that this is a hill I will die on.
Yeah.
And a friend of the podcast, Elena, former coworker, said Buc-ee's.
Yeah, see, I'm not going down that hill. Nope.
I love me some Buc-ee's, man.
Nope.
Love me some Buc-ee's. Like we talked about, it is a $200 store. You can't go in there and not spend $200, but it's on stuff you need. You need Buc-ee's pot holders. You need a Buc-ee's wallet. You need a brisket sandwich. You need Buc-ee's fudge.
There is one. I just thought of one that if you don't like it, I do question your. One of my most important. Just a step back a minute. When I'm thinking of friends, and I thought of it with a partner with my wife, and when we were dating, and every friend that I have. Everybody that I hold dear is somebody that I find funny in some way. Like you've got to have a sense of humor. It can't be dry. And so if you can look me dead in the eyes and tell me that The Office is stupid, then yes. I don't know if I can be friends with you. So that is one. So there's mine. I found my line in the sand. I question you off the start base. I guess that's one thing on my, I should have put on my Tinder profile way back in the day. It was like, if you don't like The Office, swipe left,
Swipe left. And I'm sure some people will be in the opposite camp, that they can't stand The Office because of Office fans. So, I mean, I get that. But I'm going to quote, I'll never forget this. I don't even remember what we were talking about, but it was me and you, it was Zach Jones. There was a big group of us there. And somebody said something to Zach, and Zach was like, well, everybody reserves the right to be wrong. And
that was my line for the longest.
I feel like the first time I heard it was from Zach. And so I say that all the time when somebody disagrees with me. And I'm going to say that about The Office. If you don't like The Office, that's fine. But everybody reserves the right to be wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess that's our line in the sand. Like you said, I'll share that with you. So anyway, I thought that was fun. Hope y'all enjoyed that. We're going to keep up with the polls. Those tend to go really well. And we appreciate y'all participating as always. But what I don't appreciate is picking against the spread. It's a tough week again. Last week.
How did we do this week, Rusty?
Drew went 3-3.
Yeah. Hey, we're still gambling, baby.
And you're sitting at 14-14 on the year.
Yeah, I knew I was 11-11. So,
Yeah.
hey, we still putting quarters in the machine, buddy.
Yeah, man. We're not on this end. We are now 8-21 on the year.
You have lost your house.
I have, man. I barely can afford this shirt that I'm wearing right now.
Yeah, next week you're gonna lose that shirt.
What you can't see is it's cut off it's a crop top because it's cut off at the bottom.
Yeah.
If
Rusty has a bad week next week and he comes in shirtless, you'll know because he has no clothes.
Listen, if y'all listen on Spotify, Apple, that's great. We appreciate you. Please like, share, comment, leave us a review, whatever. Next week, watch YouTube because if it's a bad week, I might be shirtless. I might be outside. I'm gonna be doing it outside of a Starbucks.
You ought to. If you do bad this week, I'm gonna make you record it outside.
I'm gonna be sitting outside like almost for the poor.
Yeah. If we do fantasy football punishments, I should make you go out there and beg for quarters with a tin cup.
Lord. Good Lord, I need it, man.
Like a leper.
Man, I need it.
Yeah.
But
so, what games did we get right and wrong?
So, I got the game right.
Yeah, I know I got Mississippi State right, and I know I got Ole Miss right, and I know I got Arkansas wrong.
And you got Notre Dame right. Man, and I was
You had it.
That's the second straight week Notre Dame's done me dirty. Last week because they lost on a last-second touchdown, and this week because they won on a last-second touchdown.
Right.
It further, Notre Dame is one of those institutions up there with Ole Miss and the St. Louis Cardinals and the LA Clippers that I just hate. I don't hate individuals, but I hate organizations. And that's one. I hate Notre Dame. And these last 2 weeks have further driven my hate for Notre Dame to a new level.
And one of the games they even lost.
You
picked them.
And I picked them, and they lost. They can't even win when I need them to.
Yeah, that was a heartbreaker because, we make these
won
picks.
That game for 3 and 3.9%, quarters.
Yeah. So, no, it was the other way around. So Notre Dame was up 13-0 pretty much the whole game. And in the fourth quarter, Duke scores 14 unanswered points.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and Duke got the ball late to drive. And I was like, okay, I know I picked Notre Dame, but I'm here for excitement, Go down and win it. College game day's there for the first time ever. It was set up for just a drive of all drives. And ultimate heartbreak happened when they didn't get it. And compounding that, Riley Leonard gets rolled up on. It was brutal. The only saving grace was that Rusty picked Duke.
And I had it, man. I was gonna be insufferable. Mississippi State got their butt kicked.
Game.
Yeah, Mississippi State got their butt kicked, but I was going to be I was gonna find a royal blue shirt and paint the mustache on my hat like they wear on their helmets. It's supposed to be little devil horns.
I did notice that. That does not look like devil horns at all.
It doesn't. But I was going to be all in on the Duke Blue Devils after Mississippi State let me down. But yeah. So I got A&M right. It's one of the few times I got them right. And then you got Notre Dame, Ole Miss, and Alabama.
Okay.
We both missed on you. We both picked South Carolina, who got boat raced.
They did.
We both picked Florida, who also got boat raced. Gave up 190 yards rushing in the first half.
Yeah.
To
that
one
was
player.
Bad. That was bad.
They
he ended up with 290 all-purpose yards, and only 9 of them were receiving. Only 9 of them were receiving.
That's it, man. And Ray Davis had a coming-out party against Florida, and it just showed that Tennessee game was a fluke. That was a rivalry game at home, and if that game was at Neyland, they would have got blown out.
Yeah, it was mental playing in the swamp.
Yeah, and then so I picked LSU, and they came out flat, and it was a great football game.
No, they did not come out flat.
I'll take that back. Their defense, man, defense was optional. I felt like I was watching a Big 12 football game. I mean, it was just racing up and down the field. Was it 1,200 yards of offense and 90 points?
Yeah,
wow.
It was stupid.
But I'll say this, and we'll get into State and Ole Miss here in a minute. I'm gonna actually say some nice things about Ole Miss because it's hard for me, but I'm gonna try. Here we go.
Compose yourself. Say it loud into the microphone.
Okay, here we go. What I appreciate about Ole Miss is it's entertaining football, right?
Oh yeah.
Mississippi State, we get you in the mud, and we're trying to beat you with running the ball and defense, and that's not working because our defense is atrocious. But at least the product that Lane Kiffin, outside of the Alabama game last week, and there were moments where it was entertaining. It's entertaining football. That's mental, 100%. Yeah. It was an entertaining football game. It was back and forth. It was high energy. And so when people
It's fun to watch.
When people outside of the Southeast, and
unless
the
you're an
SEC
Ole Miss fan, it's just
watch
a
that game, they're going to be like, man, Lane Kiffin's doing a great job, even though there's some rough edges there. He's doing a great job because it's an entertaining football game. And so people from Missouri and Montana and Washington and New York are going to watch Ole Miss because it
makes them a national name. It makes them a national entertaining game to watch.
Football. Whereas Mississippi State right now, we're playing football that I, as a fan, don't even want to watch. So kudos to Lane Kiffin. Kudos to Ole Miss on the massive win. I was wrong. I said we'd both be 3-3 going into our bye week. Looking more and more like Ole Miss is going to be 4-2 because it does feel like a year that something kooky is going to happen this week against Arkansas.
We'll get into that.
Yeah. Anyway, so shout out to Lane Kiffin for putting an entertaining product on the field and getting a big win against LSU.
Yeah. Do we just want to go ahead and get into that game now?
Go ahead.
Okay.
We'll get there first.
Yeah. So last week on the podcast, I made it clear again what I thought about Lane Kiffin, and I took it a step further, saying that he needs to get off Twitter until he wins something. He hadn't won nothing. You came with the stats versus top 25 teams, the whole shooting match. It's ugly. I
did. And he obviously listened to this show.
Yeah, obviously, big fan. Yeah, glad to see you in the chat again, Lane.
Obviously.
Yeah. So here on this little podcast, I tried to call him on the carpet. I thought it was unacceptable that he was continually calling out Alabama coaches and being cute on Twitter the week of Alabama week, and once again not showing up. Couple that with how last season ended. The team seemed to have no character last year. Every time they went through any sort of adversity, they folded. It was a very backloaded schedule last year, and the competition increased about the same time as Lane started flirting with Auburn, and the team just kind of gave up. Anytime any sort of adversity hit, it took a hard left quick, and that was it. It started with the LSU game last year. We were highly ranked. We had one loss on the year, I think. It was a big matchup, CBS game of the week, and they just wiped the floor with us. From that point forward, every time any kind of adversity happened, we turned left. You started seeing signs of that not being the case this year, but you always kind of wrote it off to the quality of opponents. They struggled with Tulane for a half. Then they covered late, but it was a one-score game in the fourth quarter. Georgia Tech, they one-score game in the fourth quarter, turned it on and covered. Then you go to Alabama, and you just did not play well. The game plan wasn't good. The execution wasn't good. Nothing was good, and you were being cute on Twitter. I said last week that Lane has no signature win. You got to look at maybe his best win at Ole Miss was a ranked road win against Tulane. Maybe it was Indiana in a COVID bowl, when they were ranked and really good that COVID year with Michael Penix. Maybe it was A&M, a few years back in Oxford. That was a big win. But you've never had that. You've never been able to stamp it. That was the day that Lane did what he wasn't supposed to do. And lo and behold, all he needed was a pep talk from me, because Saturday
and me calling him out.
Yeah. Saturday he just he went for it. I said on the podcast, like, we need less Lane Kiffin. We need more Joey Freshwater. Just some guy slinging out there. What do you have to play for? What do you have to lose? I mean, you've got one SEC loss now. You know that you've got to run the table the rest of the way. So there's no need to be safe. Like, just go out there, and you've got LSU coming in, and I'm telling you right now, it's the best offense in the SEC. Ole Miss is as good. They may be second. When it comes to weapons, LSU's got more weapons than anybody in the SEC. Alabama, Georgia, I don't care. Those two receivers on the outside are incredible. Jalen Daniels is dynamic. I felt your pain watching him consistently drop dimes in a bucket in the end zone. I've never seen more beautiful passes, and it was the same route every time. That team is dynamic. Going into the Ole Miss game, stats showed that their defense was suspect, LSU's. Leaving the Ole Miss game, they may just be flat out bad. So
that really made me feel worse about our game against LSU, because obviously their secondary, which LSU has been DBU for the longest time, and their secondary is bad. And we as a passing offense, and we'll get to state here in a little bit, could have exposed that and done some stuff. But one of my biggest beats is we went
the ball 17 times.
Right. Versus Lane Kiffin, like you said, open the playbook, let Jackson Dart play. At times it felt like backyard football, and he stepped up and played a phenomenal football game.
Yeah, so this is kind of where I want to plant my flag for today, is what Ole Miss looked like in the face of adversity against LSU. So I pulled up the drives here. As we know, Ole Miss started 7-0 out the gate, like they've done every game this year except last week against Alabama. They went down the field, scored a touchdown, took no time at all. In fact, it took 4 minutes and 35 seconds, 14 plays, 75 yards, ended with a going forward on fourth down, a swing pass to Judkins, who went in motion, and they just left him wide open. It was a blown coverage. It was really a sign of what was to come. Then Ole Miss forced a punt, which was one of the few punts that they forced. One of the few punts. I just had some noise coming in my ear. I think the ESPN website was playing an ad or something. So sorry for stuttering there for a second. So one of the few punts that LSU had all day. But then Ole Miss didn't respond there, punted. Next drive down, I'm sure you've seen it. Jalen Daniels gets absolutely rocked. He looked like Sonic the Hedgehog, and just coins went everywhere, and the football flied straight up in the air. Ole Miss got a huge turnover there, went down and scored to make it 14-0. From that point forward, LSU touchdown, Ole Miss touchdown. LSU touchdown, Ole Miss touchdown. It is 28-14. Let's see, that is in the second quarter. The Ole Miss scored, make it 28-14 with 8 minutes to go in the second quarter. So yeah, that is 42 points in 20-something minutes of football.
Big 12 football. Yeah. Is what it is.
From that point forward, LSU outscored Ole Miss 28-6. And so when I'm talking about adversity, this is what I'm talking about. Last year at this point, Ole Miss is up 28-14. Ole Miss gets down. Let's see. Ole Miss gets down 35-21. And at that point, we would have punted the whole game. And instead, what happens at that point? 35-21, LSU had just scored a touchdown. Ole Miss cuts it to one with a field goal. LSU touchdown. Ole Miss touchdown. 42-40. Ole Miss tries to go for two, doesn't get it. At that point, we've got the drive starts with 14 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. LSU goes 3 and out. Ole Miss holds them. Then Ole Miss goes turnover on downs. And then the most controversial call I've seen in football, especially considering Ole Miss, they had the fade route touchdown that was not a touchdown. You've seen the replay, I'm sure. I think you agree with me. Do you agree with me that ball was bobbled as he hit the ground?
Yeah, I think he did not have complete control through the contact with the ground.
Yeah. So the RG3 was obviously upset about it on the broadcast as a former quarterback. It was just not a touchdown. And at that point, this game is wild. It's chaotic. Ole Miss fans lost their cool. They got paid a $75,000 fine for it today. For some students throwing some beer cans onto the field. Who amongst us? I mean, in the
very Tennessee of you.
Yeah, that game felt like a war, and you knew that you weren't stopping LSU, and that ball was not caught. It was obvious on replay. It was obvious in the stands. It just wasn't a touchdown. It got called a touchdown. So then it's 49-40. That makes it a 2-possession game. And there is, 8 minutes and 34 seconds to go in the game. Ole Miss is down by 2 scores. I think ESPN had LSU is a 90-something% chance of winning that game at that point. This is not a game. My whole childhood, this is not a game that Ole Miss wins. And it just keeps getting worse. You know, as an Ole Miss fan, you think, what could happen to make us lose this game? At this point, we're coming from behind, so it's even worse. But even from your winning, you think of Hunter Henry. You think of Laquan Treadwell breaking his leg and fumbling at the half-yard line going into the end zone. Like, there's a way that we're going to lose this game. And down 9, for that touchdown to stand, to go down 9, that was the day. That was the time at Ole Miss, as an Ole Miss fan, you're just like, yeah, it's in. There were some questionable calls on the outside for holding by receivers that it's just like, you know, if you want to call holding, you can call it on every play. So, I mean, unless it's egregious, you know, typically you don't throw the flag. But
listen, we played Alabama this week. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. And so it seemed like every questionable call went our way. But Ole Miss responded. They go down 49 to 40. Then Ole Miss goes and scores another touchdown. They drive down the field. They go on a 10-play, 65 yards that lasted 3.5 minutes. It ended with a Jackson Dart quarterback sneak to cut it to 2. They kicked the extra point, and then the biggest drive of the game, LSU, it gets the ball and goes 3 and out. Ole Miss came to play, and that's the thing that you don't expect to see from a score that ended up, 55 to 49. You do not expect that game to end with a defensive stop. Like, you just know whoever's getting the ball last wins. But Ole Miss's defense pinned his ears back, forced a 3rd and long for once in the game, and got the stop. And I don't know if you saw RG3. They got Jalen Daniels to go out of the pocket. Defense got there in a hurry. Several defenders all kind of tackled him at the same time, and they just surrounded him and picked him straight up in the air. Did you see this clip? Yeah, and RG3 says they lifted him up like they were lifting Jesus up to put him on the cross. And I was like, jeez.
Well, he said some wild out-of-pocket stuff.
He did. And so they punted, and at that point, you're just like, okay, game on. So Ole Miss gets the ball back with, they get the ball back with 2 minutes and 18 seconds to go. They're down by 2. They proceed to go on an 8-play, 68 yards, but it only takes 1 minute and 57 seconds. It ends with a pass to Trey Harris, who has been absolutely incredible for Ole Miss. He's a bona fide wide receiver 1. During that game, they were talking about he had only played in 8 series this year. They have scored 6 touchdowns and kicked a field goal on the or 7 touchdowns and kicked a field goal on the series that Trey Harris was involved in and not injured. And he was absolutely incredible. The only fault he made in a 2-point game, he caught the ball with 2 defenders bracketing him. He broke one's ankle, attacked the other one, broke their ankle, had a wide open run to the end zone. The only thing he did wrong was not taking a knee on the 1-yard line to run the clock out and kick a field goal. Instead, he gave Jalen Daniels 39 seconds, which was almost 38 seconds too long. So Ole Miss is up 55-49 at that point. You just have another glimpse of being an Ole Miss fan. You know something's going to happen here. You gave him 39 seconds. The defense has been bad all game with the exception of that one key stop, but you had to make one more. And so first play, crossing pattern, takes it 40-something yards into the 30-ish yard line. Next play, Jalen Daniels drops back and hits our linebacker in the Ole Miss logo on his shoulder, in the center of his shoulder pads, right above his number. And you're just like, if he catches it, it's over. But he didn't, so now we're going to lose. Couple plays later, it's a 3rd and long. You force another 3rd and long. Jalen Daniels is running towards the sideline, think he may or may not get close to the marker, and he's pulled down by the back, gets horse collared. And it's like, okay, now this is how we lose. Gets the ball to the 12-yard line. They need a touchdown. And you just know that this is it. What happened is that the environment there, the fans in attendance, the students, got extremely loud. And Ole Miss is not a place that's known to be super impactful when it comes to the fan involvement. However, when you're playing LSU and when it's a crunch time, that place is hard to play, just like anywhere else. If you've got a reason to be loud, you will be loud and you will make a difference. And LSU proceeded to false start 2 times in a row. And at that point, they got 3 seconds to go. They're going to throw it in the end zone. And you know as well as I do, it gets a little harder in the red zone. And especially if you got to go 20, if you know you've got to score a touchdown here. It's hard to score. There's not many plays to score a touchdown from the 20-yard line.
Yeah, I looked at – I was watching at that point on Gamecast because I was watching State online or on TV. And I looked down. I was like, first and goal or second and goal from the 9. I'm like, LSU's got this. Watch a few plays. I look back down, and it's like second and goal from the 20. And I'm like,
yeah,
maybe not.
They got it to the 12, and the 2 false starts got them back to the 22. And they've got the dogs to do it. And I just knew the ball was in the air. Jalen Daniels scrambled. They got a rusher back there. He went one way, went the other way, rolled back to his left, squared up, and threw it to the end zone. And if you look at it from the other end zone, you see the receiver standing there. The problem is that ball's got to travel 30 yards at that point. And by the time the ball gets there, just in the nick of time, Dejon Anthony, the same guy who forced the fumble, hits the receiver's hands almost simultaneously. The ball goes through the back of the end zone. And I'm going to tell you, Rusty, I lost it.
Sure.
I lost my dignity right there in my den, in this room that you see me in right now. My father and I and my 1.5-year-old daughter were the only ones home because my mom and wife went to a concert. We lost it. I FaceTimed you with my daughter in her Ole Miss Julian outfit, and we were just jumping and screaming and yelling.
And let the record show I answered.
Yeah, and Rusty
in my misery,
answered.
I answered.
Yeah, I would not have answered. I do owe you one, though. So, Rusty, if you ever decide to beat anyone worth of crap, I'll answer.
Because let the record show that we talked about this off air, but Drew didn't talk to me for a week after Mississippi State won the national championship in baseball. And it wasn't from lack of I called this fool every day, and he did not answer for a week.
Yeah, I stand by that. So, I mean, it's a game that, as an Ole Miss fan, you think a dozen times you're going to lose that game. The reason why you didn't lose that game is you just had big-time players make big-time plays. I've talked about it 100 times on this podcast. Jackson Dart is a man possessed. He is an animal. He is a true cage fighter when he's playing football. He gets knocked down. He gets hit around, and he is composed to the max. He finished 26 of 39 for 389 yards and 4 touchdowns. He rushed 7 times for 50 yards and had a touchdown. He is the heart and soul of this team. I would give a kidney for him to stay here because it's just that's the kind of guy you feel like you need leading a team. He's a guy that doesn't ask somebody to get dirty when he's not. I mean, he is an absolute bulldog, and not the kind from Starkville.
Good kind.
Quinshawn Judkins had a rebirth. Rusty, I'm not an offensive line guru. I don't really understand the inner workings of offensive line play. However, I do know enough to know that there was adjustments that were made. I can't tell you what it was, but Quinshawn Judkins rushed 33 times for 177 yards, a 5.4-yard average, and a touchdown. His long was 37. I think his long going into this game was like 14 or 15 yards.
It was definitely a good bounce back game for both him and the offensive line. And one, as we've shared, like it was sorely needed because Lane Kiffin, like time and time again, has fallen flat in big games. And this is a step in the right direction. It was certainly a huge win. It was certainly getting that monkey off his back of getting that big signature SEC win. Because like you said, previously it had been like a ranked Tulane or Indiana from the COVID years. To finally beat one of the big blue bloods of the SEC is a step in the right direction. Now, we'll get into this here in a little bit. When we do our predictions for next week, we'll kind of preview our games at that point. Can you sustain it? Is there a letdown? You got to make sure this is where, like, the good coaches make those adjustments, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is where, Lane Kiffin needs to, like, pull a Nick Saban and not have that letdown the next week.
And so what gives me a little encouragement about that is Lane going into the LSU game seemed very businesslike. He's a very private guy. You know, he's not a guy that, you know, for media opportunities, he's going to do the bare minimum. He's not going to give a lot. He stayed off Twitter. and it's sad that you have to kind of Twitter watch Lane, but you do. And he was very businesslike. He treated it like another game. It's something that he's never done for Alabama. He's never been able to compartmentalize Alabama. But he compartmentalized LSU. He had a really good game plan, and they executed it. The offense is dynamic. Ulysses Bentley went 9 for 90 with a touchdown, a long touchdown. You've got the dogs to do it. Like you said, now you're still in the hunt. Big picture for Ole Miss is you're still in the hunt for the West. This is a down SEC West team, but the most important game for Ole Miss that's not an Ole Miss game going forward is this weekend, because Texas A&M has to beat Alabama this weekend for you to have a shot. There's not 2 losses on Alabama's schedule in the SEC this season if one of them does not include Texas A&M. I just don't believe for a second that you're going to get 2 losses out of, Auburn and Arkansas. I mean, there's just not Tennessee.
And LSU. None of those teams are going to beat Alabama multiple times. Yeah. This is the one. This is where you need some help. You've
got to have A&M beat them, because 2 of Arkansas, LSU, Tennessee, and whoever, Auburn, there's not 2 losses there. So it's got to be Texas A&M and one of those. Wow. So it is of the utmost importance, but it doesn't matter if you don't take care of business against Arkansas. And so it's still wide open, I guess is what I'm saying. You've still got everything to play for. The West is down. The more I watch A&M, the more I think A&M may be the second best team, if not Ole Miss, in the West. And so you look at Ole Miss, you've got Arkansas this week, you've got a bye, then you go to Auburn, and then Vanderbilt, and then A&M. At that point, when you get A&M, you've got an off week, and then Mississippi State. So that A&M game is circled as the next biggest test, but you've still got to go win those games that you will be favored in.
Man, do not overlook Arkansas, because, do I need to remind you about 4th and 25 and all these ways that Arkansas has found kooky ways to beat Ole Miss?
You're right.
You can circle A&M all you want, but I would not look past this weekend.
And that's the coach's problem. They should not look past. That's their role, not to look past Arkansas. Okay. However, Arkansas, when they've given us problems, I feel like those teams are better than this Arkansas team. I don't see anything. That Hunter Henry year, that team was good. That was Brandon Allen. That was Alex Collins. That was Hunter Henry. I mean, this team inspires no confidence for me. This Arkansas team, who has gotten blown out by A&M, who has gotten who did they get beat by this week?
They lost to A&M.
LSU this week. LSU last week. A&M this week. They lost at home to BYU. Mm-hmm. I mean, so there's not, and I'm not by no means saying that we can't lose to Arkansas. Lord knows I'm an Ole Miss fan. I know we can lose to Arkansas. However, I think the line was 10.5. Give me 14. Whatever. Mm-hmm. I just I'm not.
We'll get there.
Okay. I'm just not scared of this Arkansas team unless things get stupid. But if Ole Miss's defense is as bad as it is against LSU, Arkansas is not scoring 49 points. That's my point.
Maybe not.
I don't know that Ole Miss will be stopped if they're playing well. Of course, there's always caveats. Sure. But, if you put this in an ESPN simulator, you put it in Madden, you play it 100 times, I think Ole Miss wins 85 of them.
That's probably fair, and we'll get to those picks in a little bit. I want to talk about Mississippi State for a little bit, and then we'll come up with our picks for next week and let you kind of deep dive on some of that. But all in all, it's a season defining win, and then an opportunity to build some momentum going forward. In, like you said, a West that's pretty wide open this year.
Yeah, and there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to. And I feel like best case scenario is that we're looking back at that Alabama game, being like, I wish we could do that one again.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Keep laying off Twitter and more of the game plan, and might win that game. But I tell you, it didn't matter how much tweeting, how much game planning, how much prep we did. We knew, and I said it last week. This felt like a game that I picked Mississippi State to cover, not to win, because that was a heart pick. But immediately followed with, we might lose this game 31-9 or 35-10, like just going to get blown out. And it's because we start slow. For the third straight week, Mississippi State started down 14-0. And against teams like LSU, teams like Alabama, you're not going to come back and win those games.
No.
There are some positives. It's only the 5th time we've hit double digits against Nick Saban in the whole time we played him.
I saw it was the first time you've scored an offensive touchdown in Tuscaloosa since Dak was there.
Yeah,
a passing touchdown.
First passing touchdown. It was the first home passing touchdown since 2011. If that makes any sense. It's been tough, man,
That's
and it's like
lethal. Yeah,
there's death, there's taxes, and there's Alabama figures it out against Mississippi State. This is actually the first time in the last 3 or 4 years that we haven't played them immediately after a loss, but we played them after a game that was very close and could have been a loss in the Ole Miss game.
Right,
and it just felt like they figured it out.
Will Rogers felt very intentional. It felt very it felt very on rhythm. And I feel like when they went out after halftime against Ole Miss and they just systematically just sat on us, I feel like that's what they did on you guys. Like 100%, perfect plan, perfect execution. Like,
there's no better hype man for Mississippi State on this planet than Nick Saban. Every year leading up to the game, he's like, Mississippi State's the most physical team we're going to play. They're the most well-coached. They're the most this, the most that. Like, he hypes us up like nobody's business to go out and beat us by 4 touchdowns. Like, it's an every year thing.
That's why he does it.
We need a hype man like Nick Saban, 100%. Will Rogers had moments where he played well. Listen, with 3 minutes to go in the first half, it's 17-10, and we have the ball. And it's like we're in that football game with 3 minutes to go in the first half.
You're going to be talking about that next year when we do this podcast. We were in it for half.
No, I'm not, because of what I'm about to say. We were in it with 3 minutes to go. It was 17-10 with 3 minutes to go. We had the ball 3rd and 6. And at halftime, it was 31-10. And at that point, it was over because Will Rogers, as a senior, you cannot make a throw like he made. He threw it behind Justin Robinson, right to the defender, deep in your own territory. Alabama has a short field to work with and make it 24-10. We then go super vanilla, and like that's another thing, man. Like it drives me nuts against, and you can go back like the last coach, and I never thought I'd say this. I miss Dan Mullen because he was the last coach that really opened it up against Alabama, played aggressive, and we almost beat him.
Yeah, Dan Mullen did always play to cover though.
That's it, man. But like Joe, like it doesn't matter. Joe Moorhead, Mike Leach, Zach Arnett, and Mullen at times, like we get so vanilla and conservative against Alabama for whatever reason. And when you play vanilla and conservative against Alabama, you're going to get blown out. And every year, we like leading up to the game, it doesn't matter. Coach speech of we're going to play fast and free. We got to be wide open. We got to be aggressive. We're not like Zach Arnett. We've been scared of laundry for the last few years. We're not scared this year. We're going to come out and open up the playbook. We're going to play hard. And then you didn't. And then you just come out and you just play vanilla conservative football. You try and establish a run against where Alabama is weak on offense. They ain't weak on defense. That defense is still very good. You're not going to establish a run against them. The way you beat Alabama is no turnovers, which Will Rogers had 3. And you get creative. You know, Ole Miss, when they beaten Alabama, had gotten lucky in 15 with the doink off the helmet and all those plays. But you get creative and you open up the playbook. Where we're screwed is we don't open up the playbook. We get super vanilla. But I'm not going to belabor the offense a ton. It's awful. It was a very bad game plan. But like cheering for Alabama is like cheering for the sun to come up. Like you know what's going to happen there. Like it is what it is.
Alabama fans have no character. I've been on this bandwagon for a long time. Alabama fans have no character. They don't know what it's like to pursue.
Like my dad and some of them that have been Alabama fans their whole life, they understand.
But at this point, they've got a silver spoon too.
Yeah,
it's been too long. Yeah.
But listen to this, man. Listen to this, and this is disgusting. This is what bothers me the most. Zach Arnett is a defensive-minded coach. Last year, we were a top 15 national defense. We were very good at that 3-3-5. We weren't going to win a ton of games, but teams did not like playing Mississippi State because we were physical. We're going to hit. We're going to play hard defense, and you're going to know if you came to Starkville or we came to your place that you were in a fight. Like we came in and you were in a fight. This year, in the last 10 quarters that Mississippi State has played football,
2.5 games.
The quarterbacks are 53 of 59. for 733 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions for a 90% completion percentage against 3 SEC starting quarterbacks. This tweet came out after the Alabama game. So against 3 SEC starting quarterbacks in Jaden Daniels, Spencer Rattler, and Jaden Milroe, Mississippi State's defense has forced 8 total incompletions.
Yeah, that's sad.
And
that's bad.
And that's this was supposed to be our strong suit. Like, our defense was supposed to carry us this year because it was Zach Arnett's system, Zach Arnett's guy, and Matt Brock. There wasn't going to be a ton of change on defense while we worked out some kinks on offense. And somehow that defense is atrocious. It's so soft. Like, there were moments in the Alabama game where, we looked competent. We were blitzing in the first half, running a lot of zero blitzes, man blitzes, spies. We gave them some problems in the first half with pressure. And then we just quit. We just stopped with the pressure and then let Jaden Milroe get comfortable. They established the run. There was nothing we could do at that point. We were beat. But in a defense that is supposed to be carried by upperclassmen and Jet Johnson and Bookie Watson and Nathan Pickering to Cameron Robinson, for all these seniors and experience we have, I'm not real sure this defense can go out and stop Carr at high school right now. We are playing such bad defense. And at some point, and I'm not on the we got to fire the coach after 5 games. We got to fire the coach after 1 year. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to be that guy. Do I think Zach Arnett's the answer long term? No, but I don't think he should be fired right now.
I would disagree. If you think he's not the guy long term, go find a guy that is.
But
what's another year of sucking, Rusty?
But mid-season's not the point.
No. I'm talking about
after the year. Maybe we'll get there. But there has to be some changes, because for 3 straight weeks he's come out after the game and then on Monday and said we just weren't prepared. Our team wasn't ready. We didn't coach them up ready. And I know that's coach speak, trying to take some heat off your team. But at the end of the day, if you're coming out after 3 straight big games saying we weren't prepared, what do we do? What are you going to do that's different to be prepared?
Right.
We've got Western Michigan this week, which will be a win, get us back to 3-3.
You'll be prepared for that game, I promise.
We'll go into the bye 3-3, and that bye week is going to be pivotal for Zach Arnett's job. Because if you come out after the bye week, we play at Arkansas. Is it at Arkansas or is it at Arkansas? And then Auburn. You've got 2 weeks after that where you have to come out prepared. You can't come out and say we just weren't prepared, we weren't ready, we didn't coach them up well enough. Because at that point, we've got 6-7 games into the season, and you're not the guy. If you can't get them, to quote that viral meme, you're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. Yeah. Because if you can't get them up and ready for these games, we got to find, like you said, we can't. This was supposed to be the upswing. This was supposed to be the year that we were better. And if you can't coach up this team and get us ready for these big SEC games with the talent you have now, you sure as you know what ain't gonna be able to do it next year when the talent pool is a lot less. So, I said this last week. I knew we were gonna get beat by Alabama. Not much you can figure out in that game except for how tough you are. We didn't look very tough on defense. Western Michigan's not going to figure it out. It's that bye week. That bye week, we have to figure it out. Kevin Barbay came out this week and said, we still have to figure out how we blend our run and pass game. Bro, that's what the offseason's for. You had an entire offseason to get that blended and figure out. You don't figure that out against Alabama, in the middle of an SEC stretch.
No, they expose that.
Yeah. You've got to get to a point by the bye week. It needs to be figured out against Western Michigan. And in order to calm down some of the heat that's on Zach Arnett's seat, we have to come out and just beat the brakes off of Western Michigan. This game cannot be close at halftime.
Yeah.
That's number 1. Number 2, Mike Wright needs to get some series. Not just fluke plays, not just one-off here. We were down 40-17 with 2 minutes to go before Mike Wright got a few plays. When Will Rogers turned the ball over 3 times, he is costing you football games. And I've been a big Will Rogers supporter on this podcast, and I will continue to be that. But if you're going to go out and you're going to turn the ball over 3 times, you're not giving us the best chance to win. Maybe it's an off night. You give Mike Wright some plays. I understand, I think, why they did it, because they don't want to create a quarterback controversy. But Will Rogers is not made for this system. We've said it numerous times. And I don't know that Mike Wright is, but at least he's athletic enough, like Jaden Milroe, where if your first 2 reads aren't there, just go. Tell him to run. Just take off. Will Rogers can't do that because his feet are made of concrete. So we have to figure out, give Mike Wright some series this weekend against Western Michigan, because if not, what that tells me is that Zach Arnett's got his head in the sand and he doesn't care about turning this thing around.
Yeah, I think it's a prime opportunity for that too, because you have Western Michigan and then a bye. Mm-hmm. You can say that, you get up, say 28-0 or something at the half, and to give him a whole half and say, well, we're just keeping, we're just seeing what we got. We haven't got a chance to see what we've got yet. And then if he impresses, then you got a whole week to implement. Really, you can give him the starters. You can give him half the starters reps this week. I mean, it's already Wednesday, Thursday by the time everybody's listening to us. So he could be, and I would argue should be getting first team
100%.
reps a lot
100%.
this week.
100%, especially Western Michigan.
Like you said, nothing's more frustrating, and I know it's coach speak, but we weren't prepared. Matt Luke did the whole thing. At some point, you've got to be prepared. Like at some point, you don't. The coach will never come out and say, "I tried, they didn't listen." That is not going to happen. But it's also true that about 3 weeks in a row of saying we didn't have our guys ready, we weren't ready to play, even though it's coach speak. It's like, well, it begs the question, why? Why are they not ready to play?
Here we are. It's October the 4th, and the last time you had these guys ready to play was September the 9th against Arizona, where we won a football game, right? That's
and you almost lost that.
We almost lost that game.
Yeah.
But against LSU, we didn't have the guys prepared. Against South Carolina, we didn't have a great game plan. They weren't ready. Against Alabama, we just didn't have the guys ready. We didn't have the right plan in place.
And Mississippi State fans will tell you, and you will agree with me, you don't expect to beat Alabama.
No.
You don't expect to beat LSU. I know you've been competitive, but you don't expect it. Expecting means 75 times out of 100 we should beat them. That you don't expect. But what you do expect as a State fan is to be competitive. Don't look like they're playing Southern Miss out here. And that's what happened. Southern Miss is on the schedule later, but you take the Mississippi State jerseys and put Southern Miss jerseys up, and the scores seem about right. It was 41 or what was it? 41 to 17 for Alabama, and
that's 40 to 17 for Alabama, 41-14 against LSU, and that's the same kind of effort. You're exactly right that the Mustard Buzzers put up there.
Yeah.
Speaking of Southern Miss, like you said, we've got them coming up. That'll put us. We beat Western Michigan, we beat Southern Miss. We're at 4 wins.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about this, and I've got the schedule pulled up. So you go Western Michigan, bye week at Arkansas, at Auburn, Kentucky at home, at A&M, Ole Miss at home for the Egg Bowl. So that's 5 SEC games left. You're 0-3 right now in the SEC. What of those games do you expect Mississippi State, as they're currently performing, to be favored in any of those? Mind you, the most winnable ones are both on the road, Arkansas and Auburn.
I think the Auburn game we could be.
Yeah.
I don't know about Arkansas, maybe, because like you said, Arkansas has not been very good. They're sitting 2-3, and they've not been very good outside of the LSU game.
You hope Arkansas, Ole Miss maybe, deflates them to the point to where they punt by that time.
So I think you have to win both of those games, because
to get to 6, that's the only way you're going to do it. I don't think you beat Kentucky, A&M, and if you're at 5 and 6 going into the Egg Bowl, God help us all.
I mean, that's it, because that's where chaos happens.
Yeah.
But I think Kentucky has proven they run the ball very effectively, and we're not that great on defense right now. A&M's offense is getting it together. Don't look now; they're 4-1 with a big opportunity this weekend.
Right.
Those 2 games you're not going to win. Ole Miss is really, even when if y'all come in that game at 10-1, like that's still going to be a toss up, because it's a rivalry.
9-2 versus 5-7, all bets are off.
All bets are off.
The only thing you can bet on is there will be a fight.
100%. But you have to beat Arkansas and Auburn. You have to win those. Like, you talk about must-win games, and like you don't have a ton of must-win games in October, but we've got 2 coming up at the end of October. Like, you have to win those football games. Again, we're fighting for the Liberty Bowl at this point. Like, but it's extending the bowl streak. Like, that's the thing. Like, yes, those bowl games don't matter, but getting to them do, because that means you had a winning or you had a 500 or above season to get to a bowl game. And so if you want to extend that season, you have to take care of business at Arkansas. You have to take care of business at Auburn, because there's no other guarantee wins in the SEC after that.
Auburn showed you what they're capable of. They're capable of scaring people. They scared the crap out of Georgia this week. Hugh in his first season at Ole Miss scared some folks, and it's almost like he's got a couple shots. Like, he knows that he's going to try to win the games that are 50-50, and then he's going to save some stuff to throw the kitchen sink at a few people. No doubt, Alabama's won, Ole Miss has won. If he's got a third bullet to fire, Mississippi State's up there for the way his tenure ended. And Ole Miss.
That's fair. He's got some beef with Steve Robertson.
You may want to beat the ever-loving crap out of Mississippi State.
The Auburn football team may not have that game circled, but Hugh Freeze certainly does.
Hugh may want to beat Mississippi State and Ole Miss more than he wants to beat Alabama.
That's probably
because nobody expects him to beat Alabama in 1 year in Auburn. Year 2, you better be competitive.
But at the end of the day, like we said, man, like at this point, you got to at least give Mike Wright a chance. Like you've got to do it out there. You've got to be more dynamic in the offense, and it's so frustrating watching us play against teams.
I love that
Arizona.
You've got such a move, and I hope people are watching this on YouTube because you can almost hear it in your voice. And when you get stressed out, it's the hands over the eyes, like it's like you can hear it, like there's an audible like anguish that comes out when you're talking about Mississippi State.
This is going to be our Instagram clip for the week. It's just me covering my eyes, like because it's right.
Rubbing your temples,
because it's so frustrating when you watch in 4 straight weeks. We've watched Arizona, LSU, South Carolina, and Alabama with dynamic mobile quarterbacks, the future and the current present of college football.
Yeah, it is,
and it feels like we're playing football in 1989 against teams that are playing in 2023. We're trying to run the wing T or the wishbone against teams that are running and gunning, and like that's that again, that goes back to my compliment earlier of Lane Kiffin. He has created a product that people want to watch. People are going to tune in this weekend against Arkansas that may live elsewhere simply because Ole Miss is fun to watch because they move the football. Sure, they don't play any kind of defense. But like this is an entertainment business, and we're not entertaining our fans. We're not entertaining people at large. And then like this weekend, Drew, I would not be surprised if we had 20,000 people at the game.
No, that'll be a good day.
That's what I'm saying.
It reminds me, and I hate to draw a parallel between these two teams because I love one of them so much and I hate the other one. But it's almost like the grit and grind teams. You were always fighting for. It's like, if you'll just watch it, you'll understand it. I know they don't play a good brand of basketball, but it's physical and it's in the mud and we play different. When everybody zigs, we zag. We're the different. We're the team everybody's got to prepare for. If you just pay attention to us, you'd see. But for the casual fan, it's just not fun to watch.
There was a reason we weren't on ESPN.
Mississippi State this year is like the grit and grind Grizzlies if they won 37 games.
We were the grit and grind Grizzlies like pre Zebo and Tony Allen. Like we were that initial like edge of it where it was bad basketball. We weren't winning, or it was not fun basketball.
It was Chandler Parsons grit and grind is what it was.
100%. Because like at least the grit and grind Grizzlies were winning games, and we were a Bush League ejection and suspension of Zebo away from a Western Conference Finals and a possible Finals run that year.
Yeah.
We were in the Western Conference Finals. We were at least winning football games or basketball games. This is bad football that ain't winning football games.
Right.
And as a fan, it's frustrating. So like you're killing your national brand, which is not going to help with recruits. And the other thing that's not in Zach Arnett's corner is we have a new athletic director. Zach Arnett was hired by John Cohen on his way out. It was Mark Keenum who made that call as the president of the university. We didn't have an AD. Well, we have a new AD in Zach Selman, who comes from Oklahoma, who is used to a dynamic football program that is cutting edge, that is, leading in innovation. I don't know that he's going to stomach it very long.
Yeah, that guy was, I don't know how long he was at Oklahoma, but they went from Stoops to Lincoln Riley to Brett Venables, and TBD on Brett Venables, but Stoops and Riley never lost.
He was there. He came in with Lincoln during Lincoln Riley's tenure. And
Lincoln
then
Riley.
There's my first. Hey,
welcome to the Two Buck Sports Podcast.
It's been 3 weeks since I messed up a name, man. Golly.
No, you've been saying Jaden Milroe, and I haven't called you on it. It's Jalen.
I said Jalen.
No, you said Jade. You said Jaden like 3 or 4 times. You can listen to it tomorrow.
Anyway, I digress. But he was there with Lincoln Riley, made the Brett Venables hire, and then came to Mississippi State. And so, is that all that to say? Zach Arnett ain't his coach, and
that matters.
Coach, so.
You look at that, especially in pro teams when they're evaluating personnel, even players. The GM that comes in typically fires the coach and clears out the players and starts over, because more important than winning, it's proving that you were the reason why you win. And athletic
Zach Arnett's
director
done nothing to do that.
And nothing will fire a coach quicker than a football program that doesn't put butts in seats, because football program funds everything else, and you will go in the red quick if you don't sell tickets in football.
Yeah, 100%. And we ain't going to sell this weekend against Western Kentucky. And if we go 0-2 on that road trip, there ain't going to be nobody there for Kentucky.
And that's kind of best case scenario, because if y'all giving up by the time the Egg Bowl gets around, how many people are going to show up on Thanksgiving Day?
Well, there'll be a bunch. There'll be a bunch in red and blue. There won't be very many in maroon and white.
It won't be me, I'll tell you that. I'm not going back there.
And Zach Selman can eat. Like, that's the thing. Like, if you can't show progress this year with a senior heavy, veteran heavy team, how is he going to trust you next year to go to the transfer portal, bring up these young kids to make a competitive football team next year? And again, this is pie in the sky. I'm not saying this is going to happen, so don't hear this as a projection or a prediction or even a hope. But Zach Selman can Zach Arnett and then throws the farm at a Cliff Kingsbury who can come in and be an innovative type coach, right? Like, not saying that's going to happen, but that's an option. He's somewhere in the Greek.
He's a coordinator or something.
Somewhere. And so you go throw the farm at somebody like that to bring in a guy who just your coach to rebuild the program, not a guy who's proven that he can't rebuild a program with veteran leadership.
That's exactly my point. If you're not convinced that Zach Arnett is your coach in 2 years, then fire him today. It's the same logic when the Chicago Bears have the number 1 pick this year. If you're not convinced Justin Fields is your guy, then take another quarterback, because there's nothing worse than another year and the quarterback still sucks,
Speaking of the Bears, right now they have the 1 and 2 picks, so you got a great chance to rebuild.
Right. If Carolina, of course, they don't have their first round pick, but if they suck and at 4 or whatever pick they get, the quarterback that they love is there, and they're kind of whatever on Bryce Young, take the quarterback. You can't win in the NFL without a quarterback. And in college, a coach can set an identity quick, and a coach with an identity that can recruit players that follow his philosophy can at least turn around morale, and you can start inching towards success in year 1 with the transfer portal.
Because, like, don't get me wrong, like, the state fans who listen to this, if you're not a fan of Dan Mullen, don't hate me for this comment, but, like, at least Dan Mullen had those guys believing, and he had those guys bought in, and he had those teams playing a fun brand of football. 9 years ago today, we beat Texas A&M as the number 6 team that put us in position to beat Auburn the next week when I was there for that game that made us the first ever number 1 in the college football playoffs in a poll that came out in 2014. It was at least a fun brand of football. Like, if Arnett isn't it by the Kentucky game, if we've gone 0-2, we get beat by Kentucky heading to A&M on the 11th, and you're not convinced Zach Arnett's the guy, like, do not bring him back next year to try and rebuild this program. Again, throw money at Cliff Kingsbury. Crap, call Dion, make him tell you no. Like, do something to try and generate some excitement about the program with the fans and bring in somebody that's new, innovative, and can turn this program around. I don't like being that guy that's like, oh, year 1, coach has got to go. I've said it on this podcast. I've said it in the past. Like, I'm a big believer in a 3 years for a head coach, because first year he doesn't have his recruits. Second year he gets his system in. Third year his recruits are there making the program.
Yeah, but you got to shorten that a year with the transfer portal now.
That's it. That's it.
If you can't work the portal and get serviceable guys, because like you said, we both got Georgia transfers on our roster. We've both gone, Ole Miss has done a good job of going and picking the best wide receivers at Group of 5 conference teams. You can do it, and you can rebuild it quick, but you've got to know what you're doing. You've got to have an identity and know what players you're looking for. And Zach Arnett, as a first-year head coach in an SEC school that's arguably, not including Vanderbilt, one of the hardest jobs in the SEC. It's just, it's really hard, and you've got to sell a vision from day one. And when you've never been a head coach and you don't really have a tree, you're not part of a tree that you can pluck coordinators from, and you don't really have if you don't have friends in the industry that are notable, then you just got to. I don't see any recipe for him. He's got to turn into a legendary head coach to make this work, and just what we've seen from him this year, he's not it. And there's no reason to drag it out if you're convinced he's not it. He makes too much money.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to say about it, and we'll move on to our picks for this weekend because I'm done talking about it, is To me, the glaring obvious difference on this past Saturday night, outside of the fact that Alabama was clearly the more talented team, like every year, but watching Nick Saban and Zach Arnett on the sidelines was like watching two different games. Nick Saban, when they're up 31-10 or 31-10 before we scored, is laying into his assistant coaches, laying into his players, like coaching them up hard, coming down on these dudes, expecting, high performance, perfection, whatever, even when they're in a blowout. The entire game, it was Zach Arnett with his arms folded, his mic folded up, and he was muttering under his breath and just like glaring at people. And just like he was talking to himself. I never saw him and that's the thing. Like, I was listening to Shout Out Thunder and Lightning, Robbie Fault, Brian Haydad. I was listening to him yesterday as they were talking about his press conference from Monday. Like, he walked in the press conference. Somebody asked him, "Are you mad?" He was like, "Yes, I'm very angry." And then started telling jokes and smiling. Like, no, you're not. If you're mad, be mad. Like, show that you're mad. Show some passion. Like, on the sideline, he's just muttering under his breath. He ain't coaching nobody up. He's not getting fired up. There was a couple bootleg calls that when you play Alabama, it's going to happen. We're going to impact the outcome of the game, obviously. But you get fired up and you yell at the referee, like, show some spits, show some fire, show some fight, and then maybe that defense will. But that, to me, was one of the biggest glaring differences. And Nick Saban was coaching up his coaches and players, and Zach Arnett was mumbling under his breath the entire time.
Congratulations, Rusty. You now know what it was like to root for Matt Luke. Because Matt Luke, anytime you looked at him on the sideline, all he was doing was watching the Jumbotron.
Dude, I swear, if they showed Zach Arnett looking up like this at the Jumbotron one more time, I was going to reach through my TV and just like, bow, watch the game on the field.
And I don't blame Matt Luke, and I don't blame Zach Arnett for taking the job. You take a job as a head coach at SEC school, you take it 10 out of 10 times. The problem lies with who hired him. They should have never been offered the job.
No. We had so I was talking about this with my brother and my cousin, and like the timing didn't work out, and I don't know, he took it anyway, but like Prime took the job at Colorado the week before Coach Leak died. I think if you're the university, like, you don't, like, I understand, like, you try and create some stability by hiring Zach Arnett, but you don't.
The president of the university will never hire Deion Sanders. That's got to be an athletic department. Athletic director has to stand on a table to convince the old head president at a university that he's worth it. And when the president's making the call, it will never be Deion Sanders.
Cohen would make that hire. Zach Selman would make that hire.
Yeah.
But
you need young, forward-thinking guys like Ole Miss. Their athletic director Keith Carter hired Lane Kiffin. That was a ballsy move, and then he turned around and hired Chris Beard, which was even ballsier. If you leave that decision up to a president who is got the liberal arts department head talking in his ear, they're never going to make that call.
No, and the state of Mississippi State football is so bad, Drew. I tweeted a basketball hype video.
I wanted to say something to you about that. I'm like, you tweeted a basketball hype video right after week 4 of the SEC football season.
If that doesn't tell you the state of Mississippi State football right now, I don't know what will. On October the 2nd, I tweeted a hype video of Mississippi State basketball.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it's going to be another Mississippi State basketball is going to be a lot like Mississippi State football was last year. No offense and lots of defense.
Hey, we got some. We'll do an SEC basketball preview.
I'm actually excited about it this year. So we'll get there.
But we've got college football this weekend. We've got some big games. We got some not so big games. We were talking about this off air, trying to pick some games to pick against the spread. And there's a bunch of duds this weekend. You got a lot of directional schools. You got a lot of.
You need a Saturday to do honeydew list because last Saturday you cashed in all your favors with your wife so that you didn't have to do anything other than watch football.
Right. And we've got some more of those coming up. I keep highlighting October 21st. If you hadn't looked ahead to that weekend, like, get your stuff done, boys, because that's the Saturday you're going to want to be camped out from college game day until the last college football final late Saturday night. I've already cleared my calendar that day. I ain't doing squat but watching football all day. But in the meantime, we have what we have this weekend, and so we are going to, for some unknown reason for myself, pick against the spread again this weekend, and we'll see what we come up with. So, all right, moving right in, we'll start.
You want me to pick first just so you can pick my team? Or maybe I'll let
No.
you pick first so I can just go the opposite.
You just fade the opposite. So, game one, we'll alternate. You'll go first on this one. I'll go first on the next one. First up, we've got Texas at Oklahoma for the Red River rivalry. Say that 5 times fast. And Texas is a 6.5-point favorite.
Yeah, at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Is it in Dallas or in Austin? Where's the Cotton Bowl? It's in
That's
Dallas.
In Dallas. Right? That's in Dallas.
Yeah, they tried to change it to Red River Shootout for the exact reason your mumble mouth that
my marble mouth over here.
Yeah. Yeah, so Oklahoma has looked really good. I'd have to look up at their schedule to see who they've played, but I don't think it's been anybody overly great.
Cincinnati and smaller schools.
Yeah. But they've looked really good. They were actually, I was thinking about them for my Mount Rushmore this week, just and how dominating faction they've been beating these people. Texas has been challenged. Texas has went on the road and won in Tuscaloosa. And I was really looking forward to Texas and Kansas this week, and I turned it on just to find out that Jalen Daniels, not Jaden, but Jalen Daniels, Mr. Highlights on his chain, was out, tweaked his back during warm-ups, and so it was really a dud, and Texas really opened up a can on them late.
Yeah.
You said Texas is getting 6.5?
6.5.
Let's see. Give me Oklahoma. It's a real kind of prove it. They're in it to prove it this week. This is the first opportunity they've got to really go out there and put their name on something. This really stamp it. So Oklahoma this year has played Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa, Cincinnati, and Iowa State. They beat Iowa State by 30. They beat Cincinnati by 14. They beat Tulsa by 39. They beat SMU by 17, and they beat Arkansas State by 73. So they've got something to prove this week. They are the away team for what it matters, and it is in Dallas, so it is kind of skewed towards Texas. Give me Oklahoma to upset to cover against Texas. I think they're a good offense. I've watched Jeff Lebby's offense for 2 years at Ole Miss. He's electric. He's dynamic, calling plays. Dylan Gabriel is really good, and their defense turns over teams a lot, and they've gotten lots of scores. They had a pick six on the first play of the game against Iowa State last week. So give me Oklahoma to cover.
All right. Well, I'm going with the favorite here. I'm going to try and play it safe this week. I took a couple leaps last week, so I'm going with the favorite. I think Texas is 7 points better than Oklahoma because of one man, that's Quinn Ewers. Guy's playing great football. He looked really good against Kansas. He runs the ball effectively. He makes good decisions. Brett Venables has Oklahoma pointing in the right direction. I think the game is close, but give me Texas as a 7-point, quote-unquote, road favorite.
Fair.
Number two, just as I say this, so we've got LSU. It's a 5.5-point road favorite at Missouri. LSU is going to be reeling. LSU is going to be emotional. I shouldn't pick them because I'm 1 in whatever. I'm 2 in, whatever over the last 2 weeks. I like Missouri. They're scrappy. They are playing tough defense. They're not like this great, going to blow up and beat everybody team, but they're 5-0, and they're a lot better at this point than either one of us thought they would be. They are playing a tough style of football that's tough to beat, and they're at home. LSU is coming off an emotional loss against Ole Miss in a rivalry game where they had the game won on multiple occasions and could not pull it out. Missouri might be a product of their schedule. They beat a decent Kansas State team who was number 15 at the time. They beat Vanderbilt. They beat Memphis, MTSU. They haven't really – this will be their first test, and it's the beginning of several tests as they play Kentucky and South Carolina coming up.
That Kansas State game was a good win.
Great win. I don't know that they'll beat LSU, but I think it's closer than 5.5, and I'm going to take the Missouri Tigers.
Yeah, that is pretty bold. I'll be honest with you. I do like Missouri. They have been a team that has punched above their weight class a lot this year. They've got a close loss to MTSU. They've got a close win against Kansas State. They beat Memphis in a close game on quote unquote neutral site in Edward James Stadium, that dump in St. Louis.
Yeah.
So I'll hear your case for Missouri. However, it's not going to convince me. Going into last week against Ole Miss, I thought LSU was one of the best, if not the best teams in the West. Nothing about their offense makes me think that. I think I said it on this podcast earlier today. I think offensively they've got the best weapons in football. Brian Thompson, it's Brian Thompson, right? Ah, man, I can't believe I forgot. He scored like 3 touchdowns against us. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr. Have combined for roughly 1,200 yards of offense and 13 touchdowns on the season. I think Missouri's scrappy. I think Brady Cook is really good. He's thrown no interceptions so far this year, and I don't think LSU's defense is good. But the reason I'm going to pick LSU is kind of the same reason in a minute I'm going to pick Ole Miss. I don't think that Missouri can make enough stops to slow down to score with LSU. I think LSU can score at will. They're playing it at home in they're playing in Columbia. And I don't care. LSU's got 2 losses on the road against Ole Miss and on the road against Florida State. They're going on the road again, but that offense is legit. Their wide receivers are legit. Jalen Daniels is a legit. Give me the Tigers from Baton Rouge to win and to cover.
Yeah, I think LSU will win. This feels like another one of those games. You remember last year, Missouri gave Georgia fits until the final 2 minutes of the game, and Georgia scored a late touchdown to win. I think that's what this is going to be. I think this is going to be close. Maybe Missouri's leading, and then LSU
but it's only
scores a late touchdown.
5.5 point spread, so if a late score is going to recover.
Late field goal, late touchdown, maybe they're coming from behind. I got to do something to try and come back, and I'm going to put my neck out there for Missouri. Next up, we've got Alabama as a 2-point road favorite at Texas A&M. When it's 3 points or less, it's basically a push. And so Alabama's a 2-point favorite. What's your take here?
So basically a 3-point favorite at home on the road for Alabama tells me that that if this game was played on a neutral site, then A&M would be favored. No, I'm sorry. That Alabama would be about a 5-point favorite
right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Alabama would be about a 5-point favorite on a neutral field. I'm with you. I think Alabama figured something out second half against Ole Miss. They systematically beat Mississippi State last week. Just really enforced their will the whole game on offense and defense. They just wore you down, just like they wore Ole Miss down. I think they're capable of doing that again. However, that front four against Texas A&M is bona fide. They will get after the passer. It'll be one of the hardest matchups, position group wise, that Alabama will face is their run game against that defensive line, that front seven for Texas A&M. I need Texas A&M to win this game. Make no bones about it. We talked about it. If Alabama's going to lose 2 games and Ole Miss has a shot to win the West, it's got to include this Texas A&M game. I'm picking this one with my heart, not my head. Give me A&M. I hope that Max Johnson is not bad and good enough to win, because he is as solid as they come, but the ceiling is not really there with him. However, that defense is good. If it gets in the mud, you see what happens at Kyle Field. A&M's beaten them at Kyle Field before. It can happen again. This Alabama team has holes. This A&M team is not complete, but it's got enough in the right spots to make me wonder. So I'll gladly concede this game to you if Alabama wins. But I'm picking this one with my heart. Give me A&M +2 at home.
All right. Again, it's a valid argument, because the one area where we kind of shined against Alabama was our defensive line. this is not your granddad's Alabama offensive line. J.C. Latham is a bona fide pro prospect at right guard, but that's it. Their offense, they talked about this a lot during the state game. They built a big offensive line, but they didn't really build a big offensive line that can move. And so what they have in size, they don't have in athleticism. And A&M's front four are legit. Yeah. They are some earth movers, but they can move. They can fight in the phone book. They're quick off the ball. That's going to give Alabama some problems.
You say they can fight in the phone book?
Fight in the phone booth. That's what I said.
Oh.
But listen to the replay. I said phone booth. They can fight in the phone booth, and they're going to create some issues for Jalen Milroe, and they're going to. Now you got me thinking about it. They're going to create some issues in a pass rush. They're going to stop J.C. McClellan from running the football. But that Alabama defense it's good. Their secondary is a little bit suspect, but their front seven are good. I think, again, like you said, Johnson's ceiling is pretty low. Yes, A&M beat Alabama at Kyle Field, but that ain't Johnny Manziel walking through that tunnel. Yeah. And a 2-point favorite on the road, I think Alabama's at least a field goal, going to win this game by at least a field goal. It might be ugly, 17-14 or 28, 24-20. It's not going to be some flashy football game because where these two teams are better at the defensive line and on the defense, I'm going to take Alabama on the road. Just trusting my gut and Nick Saban there that they're going to get a win on the road.
Yeah, the last time that Texas A&M beat Alabama was in 2021. The last time they played in Kyle Field. Do you remember that? The game-winning field goal as time expired.
Oh yeah, was that Kellen Mond?
That was Zach Calzada.
Oh wow, who's just recently transferred somewhere.
Yeah, he went to Auburn last year.
Auburn, that's right. Yeah, I don't know where he's at this year, but I think he might still be there.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So. All right, next up, and I've been back and forth about this one like left and right because Georgia has not impressed me so far.
I'll give you 10 guesses where Zach Calzada plays football.
It's not in the SEC. Is it in the SEC?
No.
I don't know. Give me a geographical region.
I gotta look it up.
Like southeast, southwest.
It is in San Antonio, Texas.
UT San Antonio.
You think I wouldn't know where UTSA was located?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Former quarterback is now playing at Washington State. Washington State, Cam Ward, who has been lighting the world on fire for Washington State this year, is a transfer from this school. They are the Cardinals. They play in the Southland Conference. They are Incarnate Word.
Oh, I'd have never got that. You could give me a million guesses. And I'd have never got to Incarnate Word. But all right, so this next one, Kentucky at Georgia. Georgia is a 14.5-point home favorite. Kind of alternate. I'll go first on this one but honestly, I've been back and forth. Georgia's not impressed me. 14.5 feels like a lot against a running team like Kentucky. But I think what's going to happen, Georgia is going to make Devin O'Leary beat him through the air. And I don't think that they can do that. I don't think because they're going to take away Ray Davis. They're going to stack the box. Kirby Smart's not going to give up 290-yard all-purpose yards to Ray Davis. Give me Georgia as a 14.5-point home favorite. It's in Athens. It's a rivalry game. Kentucky's coming in with some momentum. And I cannot wait to hear the Kirby Smart pregame speech after this game to get them boys ready. And then, too, also – Brock Bowers is an absolute machine, man. 125 yards in the fourth quarter last week. Give me Georgia.
At some point, Georgia's going to have to assert some dominance. And you keep thinking it'll be the next week, but so far it hasn't been. It wasn't against Auburn. It hasn't been up till Auburn. In the 4 games leading up to it, a cupcake schedule still did not look like a cupcake in most weeks if you're just looking at the box score. So, I'm inclined to say that this is the week they get right. If Georgia's going to get right, they're going to get right. Kentucky's had an up and down season. Devin Leary has been pretty good. They had a signature win against Florida, where they just beat the brakes off of them. Up until then, they beat Ball State, they beat Eastern Kentucky, they beat Akron, they beat Vanderbilt. Doesn't really show you much going in, so you don't really know what Kentucky is outside of that win against Florida, and they're going on the road. I've already taken Alabama. I'm taking A&M to beat Alabama. I've picked against Alabama. It kind of feels like I'm just feeling too good about myself if I'm going to go and pick Georgia. I pick against Georgia now. But I'm going to. 15.5 is just a lot of points for teams that are just not high flyers. I haven't seen Georgia blow anybody out yet. I have a hard time thinking they're going to do it to Kentucky this week.
There you go. All right. We've got two left. We'll move through these kind of quick. One of them non-SEC. Syracuse, the former Mississippi State Bulldog Garrett Schrader. They kind of hung with Clemson for a while. They got blown out at North Carolina. North Carolina, again, is kind of up and down. Like, pulled one out so we can have an even 6. 8.5-point home favorite, North Carolina. I don't know much about either one of them. All I know is Garrett Schrader plays for Syracuse. Give me the big orange. I'm taking Syracuse. Maybe not to win, but to at least cover against North Carolina.
All right. What did you say you've got the line at?
8.5 is what DraftKings was.
Give me North Carolina. North Carolina's ranked 14. They've got Drake May, which is arguably one of the best quarterback prospects in this year's draft class. I don't see any reason why that team that I watched for Syracuse play at home against Clemson. I don't see any reason why they're going to go on the road and do anything more than what I saw at home against Clemson. That North Carolina team is 4-0. They've got wins against South Carolina, App State, Minnesota, and a conference win against Pitt. Give me North Carolina. To me, this is easy. North Carolina, I'd take them at 10.
There you go. And then the last one, we've got Arkansas at Ole Miss. We're not doing stake this week. They're 21.5-point favorite. If they don't cover against Western Michigan, this officially becomes a SEC basketball podcast. But Arkansas at Ole Miss, 11.5-point home favorites for your Ole Miss Rebels.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ole Miss wins, and I think Ole Miss wins big. I think for the same reason, I teased it when we were talking about LSU, Missouri. I think Arkansas is down. I have friends that are Arkansas fans that keep telling me they've never had weapons like they've had, like they have this year. However, it seems like I remember Treylon Burks played there not 2 years ago, so I don't really know what they're talking about. They don't have a receiver that's as good as Treylon Burks. Rocket Sanders is good, but he's coming off injury. He was clearly banged up kind of getting the rust off last week in that game against Texas A&M. Rocket Sanders, he went, 11 for 34 with a 3.1 yard average. That's their bell cow. Outside of him, KJ Jefferson against A&M. Can you tell me how many passes he completed?
Not many. 9.
Just give me a number. 9. Exactly. He went 9 for 17 for 132 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. I told you that front 7 for Texas A&M is legit. They kept him at bay. He only had -3 yards rushing on 18 attempts. So, yeah, really, really bad game for KJ. I just don't think they've got the dogs to score if Ole Miss is going to score the way that they scored against LSU. And I know this game gets weird. I know it's your favorite thing to say is that this – don't overlook Arkansas. Arkansas, weird things happen. I get it. I've told you 100 times. I don't pick based on chaos factor. It's not a way. It's the reason why you were like 4-40 on picks because you just think everything's going to be chaos. I think Ole Miss wins. I think Ole Miss wins big. And I think Ole Miss goes into their bye week next week, 5-1, looking to go on the road to Auburn.
I don't disagree with any of that. Yes, I'm bad because I'm picking chaos, sure. But the one problem is Ole Miss's offense can't keep Arkansas from scoring. And Arkansas doesn't have the dogs, sure, to keep up with scoring, but they're going to move the football. They're going to find some success. I think KJ Jefferson is better than what he was last week when he played. I don't think Arkansas is going to win this game. I agree. I think Ole Miss goes in their bye week 5-1, and they find a way to win this game. But I think it's close. It's a rivalry game. It's a kooky game, like I said. It feels right for something weird to happen. Not weird enough for Ole Miss to get beat, but at 11.5 points, I mean, this game could very easily be a 10-point or less game, and Ole Miss still find a way to win. And so I'm not going to pick Arkansas to win. I'm going to pick them to cover. I may regret that, but that's what I'm taking.
Yeah. I just based on what I've seen from Arkansas this year, there's nothing inspiring about this team. Sure. I think it's a team that's frustrated. I think they're a team that is a loss against Ole Miss, especially an embarrassing loss against Ole Miss from punting. I just don't. I think the fans are souring on Sam Pittman. Dan Enos is not a good offensive coordinator.
And did you see what I sent you?
Mad. Yeah, he's been responding to naysayers from his email. It's just a real bad look. I just don't think they're going to do it. To me, this game feels like a two-lane game, where it could be close for a little bit. I see like 41-17, 41-24. I don't think they're going to stop Ole Miss. And I think Ole Miss, if they can get some stops early and, get off to a good start, Arkansas, I just don't know what they've got in them character-wise. Yeah. They got up for LSU and it got it ripped away from them, and it seems like they just had a huge letdown game last week against Texas A&M.
And they may have that out of their system.
Maybe this is the one more time they get up, and if this is the one last time that they've told themselves to get up one more time, if they get knocked in the mouth early against Ole Miss, they could fold again.
Sure.
I don't really see it. There's, if I'm picking the game without thinking about history, just looking at the teams and what I've seen, and trying to be as unbiased as I can, I just don't see how Arkansas has the Dogs.
Sure. And you may be right. We'll find out real quickly, because I do want to get to fantasy football. We done this every week. I want to get our 4 picks for the college football playoffs. I'll go through mine real quick. Number 4, I always pick a team that impressed me and showed me a lot on the week, and that number 4 team for me this week, shout out Aaron Ivey, is Kentucky. They ran the football. They just absolutely mashed Florida, moved them out of the way. Ray Davis had a ball game with his 290 all-purpose yards, just absolute dominance. I'm picking Kentucky at number 4. Now the real teams. At number 3, I was impressed by Texas. They absolutely dismantled Kansas in what could have been a close game, an upset alert maybe. They didn't have their QB1, but Texas showed up. They handled their business on the road. Quinn Ewers had a massive game. Great win for Texas. Number 2 is Oregon. They just impressed me a ton. You may not like their uniforms coming to this weekend. I like the throwback crayon colors.
That's a slug burger special, mustard and pickle.
That's it. I like it, man. I think it looks great as a great throwback. Oregon is my number 2 team. I think they can score a ton of points. Bo Nix is playing great football right now. And then number 1 until they get beat is Florida State, man. I'm still thinking they're the best team I've seen in football. So Florida State, Oregon, Texas, and then my number 4 team is Kentucky.
Yeah, so my number 4 team is Washington. They're still up there. They're beating the brakes off people. They beat Washington this week on the road. They dismantled California.
Washington beat Washington on the road?
I'm sorry, Arizona. They beat Michigan State. They beat Tulsa. They beat Boise, and they've beaten everybody bad. Washington's number 4. I'm going to go. I'm going to leave Penn State at number 3. Just the way they dismantled Iowa has stuck with me. They went on the road and dismantled Northwestern. Big whoop, I know, but I'm not going to penalize them for them. They were in there last year, so they're going to be last week. So being there this week. Number 2 is a new one for me, and I'm going to tell you why. You've had them in your standings. I'm surprised that you didn't have them in your standings this week. Michigan, number 2. I don't like cheering for Harbaugh. I actively root against him and against Michigan. But let me read you the scores for their games this year. Week 1, 30-3 against East Carolina. Week 2, 35-7 against UNLV. Week 3, 31-6 against Bowling Green. Week 4, Rutgers, who is good, solid, 31-7. Nebraska, 45-7. So if I'm doing this correctly, in every single game this year, they have scored 30 or more points, and they have given up no more than 7.
It's impressive. Now, the competition had been all that great, but it's impressive.
No. And it's not going to get any better. They got Minnesota, then Indiana, then Michigan State, then Purdue. and
then we
you go
out.
then you go Penn State, Maryland, Michigan. Ohio State. That's the big games. So Michigan's number 2 for me. Florida State's number 1. We haven't talked about them. They had their bye week early. They had their bye week last week in week 4 or week 5. So they're coming back until they get beat. They're going to be number 1 for me. They come back and they play Virginia Tech at home this week. Virginia Tech's really bad.
Yeah,
so.
Before they get Syracuse and Duke. But, yeah, Michigan's one that I toyed with, but I went with Texas and Oregon instead this week. Michigan's been very impressive. But the moment we've all been waiting for,
we're going to talk about NBA media
There
days.
could only be one undefeated team in the League of Avengers after the clash of the Titans this past week. And as the Macho Man Randy Savage would say, the cream rises to the top. And the Mad Titans are now 4-0 after beating, with some luck, Drew Gann's Waddle Vision. Shout out Mad Titans. Let's go.
You know you're in a bad spot when you're waiting for Monday Night Football and you need 50 points from you need 50 points from Waller, Geno Smith, and Tyler Lockett, and Geno goes out in the second quarter. So it was just a bad week. It put up 100 points even, just a really bad week, and not a really good week all in all for the League of Avengers. Mm-hmm. You had a close win by Neasy. He finally got up off the mat here to go to 1-3 with a 2.5-point win over Patrick Jones, who is 0-4. We didn't talk about that last week. We had 2 3-0 teams playing each other, but we also had 2 0-3 teams playing each other.
Yeah.
The Buddy Stevens Award will go to our man Michael Mutters, who he only put up 130 points, but our boy Aaron Ivey put up a balmy 80.5 points. And props to Cousin Kirk. I'm just now seeing this. A win 127.3 to 126.7. That's a 0.6 point differential in it's got to be the closest match of the season so far. So props to Kirk. He got a big win. Lump's going to have the Al Gore Award, most points scored in the loss. That's it. I had a bad week. It was, minor setback for a major comeback. And don't look now, but all my good players are on bye next week. I've got Keenan Allen on bye, I've got Geno on bye, and I've got Tyler Lockett on bye. So not a good week to rebound either.
It wasn't a great week for me. I had 0.6 from Debo and 1.9 from George Kittle.
Really, what left the door open was that 49ers game.
That egg
on Sunday afternoon.
Because Christian McCaffrey decided to be a ball hog and score 4 touchdowns and have 170-something yards of total offense. But big game from A.J. Brown.
It was a short-lived hope for me after the 49ers game, and where your 2 players combined for 2.5 points.
Yeah.
And then it was quickly put to bed when Isaiah Pacheco had a huge game on Sunday Night Football.
Mm-hmm. I felt
in the Taylor Swift game.
Like going into it, I had like a 64% chance of winning, and I didn't feel good about it until like the start of the fourth quarter. I felt like, okay, I might have this one in the bag because it just felt like it was going to be. Now
Geno Smith and Daniel Jones combined for like 4 punts in the first 3 drives somehow.
And we don't talk about it on here, I know, but I play in a family league. I was playing my nephew Ty, and going into the game, at the start of the game, he had a 93% chance of winning that game. He had a 93. I had a 7% chance of winning that game against my nephew Ty, and I won because he had Geno Smith, and he had who else did he have? And I had DK. DK got me 9 points. Geno Smith went out, got hurt, only got him 16 as a quarterback. I had a 7% chance of winning that game, and I won 164 to 160. So both teams are 4-0 right now.
I'm glad you got a win. You needed it this week after my Rebs won big, and your 2 favorite teams lost, Mississippi State and whoever's playing Ole Miss.
Exactly. So shout out to fantasy football, because at work we've got an instant messaging service, and right now my status is football ain't footballing, because if it wasn't for fantasy football, it'd have been a rough week. Even though shout out to Titans, got a big win over the Bengals, felt like the Titans of old, but nobody celebrates NFL wins, man. We got to get our college team back on track. But enjoyed it, buddy. Another great show.
All right, man. Enjoyed it. Everybody check us out on Instagram at the number 2 Buck Sports Podcast, and on all of our podcast platforms. Leave us a comment, give us 5 stars, interact with us on Instagram. It seems like we've had a lot of fun. Or doesn't seem like it. We have had a lot of fun interacting with everybody on these polls and stuff throughout the week. So keep doing that. Tell your friends about us, and we'll see you here again on Wednesday.
Enjoyed it, buddy. See ya.
All right. Bye.